winners and the losers. Was there one winner in this entire conflict in West Asia? Was there a loser? What have Israel and Iran managed to achieve at the end of the day? Good evening, welcome to Left, Right and Centre. I'm Vishnu Shom. On the program tonight. A fragile ceasefire between Israel and Iran brokered by the US and Qatar is already under strain. President Trump has announced the deal, claiming it ends the 12-day conflict, but both sides accuse each other of violations. Trump, visibly frustrated, lashed out, criticizing Israel for strikes post-agreement and Iran for missile launches. Despite his complete and total ceasefire boast, explosions rocked Beersheba hours after the truce began. The US role, led by Trump's direct talks with Benjamin Netanyahu and Qatar's mediation, aimed to halt escalation, but with tension simmering, has anyone truly won this volatile standoff? So in terms of the fast-moving developments in West Asia, what exactly has happened? Let's look at that before we look at the entire theme of winners and losers. Well, there was a late-night truce, and that was something which was quite unexpected given the fact that there were missile strikes by Iran on Qatar at the Al Udeid military base, the air base, which was a huge American facility, but there was still a late-night truce. There was an announcement by the US President Donald Trump of that. Iran's attack then took place during the daytime at Beersheba, where 4 people were killed. Israel then threatened a powerful strike against Iran. And so, despite the ceasefire announcement, there was this back and forth and a great deal of violence between Israel and Iran today. Now, according to some reports, Israel retaliated for Iran's attack on Beersheba. This got Donald Trump extremely angry, and he warned Israel and Iran. And post this warning, Israel has refrained from further attacks. In fact, that language used by the US president is in fact some of the sternest that we've ever heard.
Israel, as soon as we made the deal, they came out and they dropped a load of bombs, the likes of which I've never seen before. The biggest load that we've seen. I'm not happy with Israel. You know, when I say, okay, now you have 12 hours, you don't go out in the first hour and just drop everything you have on them. So I'm not happy with them. I'm not happy with Iran either. But I'm really unhappy if Israel's going out this morning because of one rocket that didn't land, that was shot, perhaps by mistake, that didn't land. I'm not happy about that.
So let's just analyze what that situation is now. Let's take a look at this from a takeaway perspective. Well, first up, what has Iran gained? What has Israel gained? The Iranian regime stays. So all that talk of regime change, at least for the moment, has gone away. Remember just a couple of days back, there was this active conversation which was taking place on the possibility of regime change. But I think by the end of it, Khamenei remains, and therefore he's gained in this perception battle within Iran. Now, how is that going to play out in the long run? In fact, is he a stronger leader in a sense today, with Iranians rallying around him, seeing themselves as being a victim of Israeli and American attacks? Now, the other aspect of this, which goes in favor of Iran, is that their knowledge, their nuclear knowledge remains secure. Yes, several scientists, dozens of them over a period of time, have been taken out, but nobody really knows what they've done with approximately 700 kilos of enriched uranium. And so despite their inability to build plants, they do have that knowledge. And is that something which can be used to, in fact, who knows, make another plant? Iran may not be allowed to build another plant. However, that's the key question. That's the key point. All of their nuclear plants have been bombed into to oblivion almost. I mean, they don't effectively exist in any way, shape or form. If they try and do that, then Iran can hit them, Israel can try and hit them again, or America for that matter. So let's move to the next point. Iran, given what we've seen of their military prowess other than ballistic missiles, may permanently lose control of its skies. It's quite clear that Israel is overwhelmingly superior. They are operating anywhere over Iranian airspace, and therefore they retain the ability of taking on strikes on Iranian territory. Israel has the ability of doing that at any place that they want, whenever they want. Now, Israel's missile defense shield, Iron Dome is just a part of that, that has stood exposed. So this is where the Israelis would really need to look at the ability of the arrows and the Patriot missiles of the Iron Dome itself, David Sling, the entire elaborate structured missile defense shield, because hypersonic missiles fired by Iran, these are very sophisticated ballistic missiles and other types of missiles, some following a hypersonic trajectory which are distinct. They've been proven to be tough to intercept, and the number of hits that Iran has been getting, which has resulted in the loss of lives, perhaps has given Benjamin Netanyahu pause, right? Israel has perhaps realized it was taking too many losses. Even today, there were civilian structures taken out. At least 4 people were killed. There have been hits on Tel Aviv as well. The Israelis don't want people to be pointing their cameras in the direction of the hits, but there have been hits. And that's something which Israel will recognize, that their shield is not invincible. However, Iran will also know that there is a huge cost in terms of pushing terrorism. Now, if they push their proxies in Yemen, or they push them in Syria, or from Iraq, for example, or from Lebanon, or Hamas out of Gaza, then they're going to pay for it, because they already have massively in terms of the overwhelming military edge that Israel has over them. So that's something that they're going to realize. And then let's go to, I think there's one final point, where Iran has been able to retain an element of its integrity, its sovereignty. The fact that there has been no regime change is because of its ballistic missiles, but those stocks have been depleted. Can Iran replenish its ballistic missile stocks? Because these have proven to be relatively successful against Benjamin Netanyahu and Israel. And if they try and do that, then would Israel try and destroy those facilities going forward? Joining us now, Omer Anas, Associate Professor at Ankara's Yildirim Beyazit University, Mohammad Khatibi, an Iran analyst and broadcast journalist, Dr. James Dorsey, he's a journalist and Middle East expert, and Shuki Friedman, Director General of the Jewish People Policy Institute. Shuki Friedman, let me come to you first. It sounds terribly simplistic, who's won or who's lost. The fact of the matter is that Israel may not have achieved everything it wanted, and Iran certainly hasn't achieved very much of what it wanted. So at the end of these 12 days, where do both countries stand?
First of all, it's quite clear that Israel achieved tremendous achievements. In Iran, we had 3 targets for this war. One is to demolish the nuclear program. Second, to hit tremendously the missile program, and third, to eliminate the power of the proxies of Iran. We have achieved all of them, not completely, but at least immensely. And think about it. For 12 days, Israeli jets flew above most of Iran freely, with no any risks to their ability to bomb Tehran again and again and again, and other parts of Iran. And we actually saw, together with the rest of the world, that the Iranian regime is a tiger of paper that incapable of protect its citizens and its bases and its infrastructure. And the fact that Israel did not hit the economic infrastructure of Iran was just a decision we took not to hit Iranian economy, but only the military capabilities. On the other hand, in Israel, we've been hit it even this morning, but for the figures, you must realize that only
Israel,
only 4.5%
Mr. Friedman,
of the
can I edge in with a question? And I think it's relevant, because in as much as there is no doubt about the Israeli military strength vis-a-vis Iran, the fact of the matter is that you've sustained losses as well. Even today in Beersheba, for example, at least 4 people, as I understand it, have lost their lives. There have been houses which have been hit, hospitals which have been hit, government buildings which have been hit, and it's clear that your missile shield, though very good, is not invincible. Therefore, in as much as you have hit Tehran and other areas, is there not enough reason for Israel to pause? Because you have to understand that those ballistic missiles have had an impact on your territory.
It's true that Israel was hit by Iranian missiles as well. But if you compare the potential risk and the factual hits, you see that only 4.5% of the missiles that the Iranians sent to shoot at Israel hit targets, any target, and they shoot at us 1,200 drones. Only one of them hit Israel. So it will be able to continue and then hit the rest of the Iranian infrastructure and economy, but we seek for a solution and resolution that will enable us, from one hand, to contain and prevent Iran from getting any nuclear capabilities and missile capabilities, on the other hand, be able to calm down and to actually try to retry the path of negotiating with Iran, but from a stand of power.
Mohammad Khatibi, would you agree that the fact that there is a regime still existing in Iran is perhaps your biggest takeaway, is perhaps Iran's biggest takeaway?
So calling Iran a regime is not accurate. Because people are supportive of the government, and it is not right to call Islamic Republic a regime, because there is a great support for the Islamic Republic, and it's a standing government, not a regime. And a regime is what is in
you make
Israel.
your point. I accept that point. Let's call it the Iranian government. Do you believe that the biggest takeaway for Iran is the fact that the government still stands?
Yes, because the Israeli endgame was to overthrow the government in Iran, and it is now can't do anything about it, and Israel was not able to do anything about the regime change. And also, the other point that I would like to mention is this: Israel was not able to continue like this and continue attacking Iran, because Iran's retaliation was really massive, and Iran was able to carry out strikes against Israel, missiles and drones, and Iran was prepared to launch war attrition, which is not preferable either for US nor for Israel. Israel's interceptors were depleted, I think, and there were reports that in 2 weeks, all those interceptors will be done, and Israel's airspace would have continued to dominated by Iranian missiles. And Iranian missiles have done a really large impact on Israeli infrastructure, military infrastructure. Israel has been censoring all of the impact and have been jailing
Mr. Khatibi, the
people
counterpoint
who were
to that is that Iran's ballistic missiles are also finite. The fact that Israel had complete dominance over Iranian airspace, was able to knock out ballistic missile launchers almost every day for the last 12 days. The fact that Iran has a finite number of missiles left would perhaps make the argument also valid that Iran couldn't have sustained these attacks indefinitely. And without your ballistic missiles, quite frankly, militarily, to threaten Israel, Iran didn't have much. It hardly had anything.
So Iran is fighting alone, but it is not the case for Israel. Without the US help, Israel wouldn't have dared to attack Iran's sovereign territory.
But that hardly matters in the context of the war.
It is now attacking Iran by support of Israel.
Yeah,
and
sure,
now
but that's okay. I mean, when you're in a war, it hardly matters who supports you and who doesn't. You have to survive for your own sake. So, I mean, if America has gone and supported Israel for right or for wrong, they'll take that support, and they clearly have no problem about doing that. But Mr. Khatibi, before I go across to my other panelists, I'm just trying to understand what happened almost 24 hours back when Iran launched what seemed to be a set-piece, fixed match kind of attack on an American airbase, Al Udeid in Qatar, which had already been evacuated. Apparently, a couple of hours prior to the attack, Qatar was told that, look, there's going to be a missile attack. The attack itself was fairly limited. Nobody got hurt, fortunately, on the ground. And then shortly after that, this entire talk of a ceasefire happened. Was that being done for domestic consumption for the government in Iran to tell people in Iran that, look, we have gone and hit the Americans, when in fact you didn't really achieve very much?
So this wasn't symbolic. This was a warning sign that shows that Iran is capable to attack every base in the region, but it preferred to attack an evacuated base and attack a base that no soldiers were present. This was a warning sign, not a symbolic or predetermined attack, because Iran has the capability to attack all the US assets in the region, also US air bases.
But how
Iran
would
has
that
the capability
benefit Iran? If Iran were to attack the other bases across the region, what would happen to Iran next?
So this was not us who initiated this war. This was Israel, and US came to support Israel and attacked Iran's fordosa.
That doesn't answer
Iran
my
has a
question,
right to
Mr.
self-defend.
Khatibi. Mr. Khatibi, my question to you is very simple, and it's based on the point that you made. Your point is that Iran had the potential or the ability to strike at American bases across the region. I'm just asking, if Iran were to have done that, what would have happened to Iran?
So this is not our problem. This is the problem of Arab states in the region who host the US air bases, US bases in the region. They should not allow their territory to be used by an
what I'm suggesting, sir, is that if Iran hit American bases, then Iran would face the loss of potentially thousands of people as a result of overwhelming American attacks, let alone Israeli attacks. I'm not sure militarily Iran is in the fight, other than ballistic missiles, which have been used effectively against Israel, relatively speaking. But if you were to extend that and get into a fight with America, I'm not sure Iran would achieve anything.
So I don't say that Iran will achieve a victory by fighting the United States, but I'm saying this: if it was capable to attack Iran and do a regime change in Iran, it wouldn't hesitate to do that. Because now US politics doesn't allow Trump to do that. Other than that, the oil prices will skyrocket. There is a high price for the United States to attack Iran, and Iranians know this well. I'm
Dr. James Dorsey, I get your point, Mr. Khatibi.
I'm just talking that we are able to defend our sovereign territory.
All right. Dr. James Dorsey, the fact of the matter is that we still don't know where approximately 700 kilograms of highly enriched uranium, which Iran is believed to have in its possession, we don't know where that's gone. Tomorrow, if Iran chooses to get out of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, of which it is a signatory, then we get into this very dark area of what Iran potentially seeks to do with that uranium. We can start talking about dirty bombs as well. And the fact of the matter is, in as much as Iran's nuclear facilities have been bombed, they retain the knowledge of what to do with nuclear technology. That can be used in all sorts of ways. So therefore, after 12 days, my question to you is, where exactly are we?
I think we're still at a very fragile and dangerous moment. I think we got to halt to the hostilities right now, because it was a propitious moment, both for the Iranians and for the Israelis, to declare victory. Neither has been a victor. Both of them have achieved some of their goals. Iran never wanted this conflict. Let's be clear about this. In terms of the last 12 days. In terms of one of the problems with this is, first of all, there's no agreement that there is a ceasefire. The Iranian position has always been, we will stop retaliating if and when the Israelis stop attacking. And that's been the response, basically, in answer to Trump's demand that the guns fall silent. This ceasefire has no terms, as far as we can see. There's no indication that there is going to be further negotiation, although, again, from the Iranian point of view, there was not going to be a resumption of negotiations as long as the fighting was going to go on. In terms of the uranium that was enriched to 60%, which is according to the IAEA, the International Atomic Energy Agency, 410 kilograms. I think one also has to understand the process, how one got to 60%. And that goes back to Trump's withdrawal from the 2015 international agreement that curbed Iran's nuclear program. When Trump withdrew, Iran waited a year before it started gradually abandoning provisions of the agreement, basically as a tactic to try and pressure the United States to return to the 2015 agreement, enriching far beyond the 3.67% to which it is entitled was part of that strategy. Iran's problem is that in many ways what was a strategy to pressure the United States has now gotten its own dynamic, partly because of political spin and the assertion that this was from the beginning intended to develop a nuclear weapon, but partly because now Iran has 60% enriched uranium, and that is considered to be a threat to Israel and a threat to others. And it hasn't handled that very well. In other words, it could have, in this situation, offered to do whatever with the 60% enrichment, those 410 kilograms. The last thing I want to say on this is, I think you can safely assume that those 410 kilograms were no longer at the sites that were targeted by the United States and by the Israelis. The Iranians knew this was coming. They've been long preparing for something like this. And so I think you can safely assume that it was spirited away. One indication of that is that the last time that the International Atomic Energy Agency inspectors that are in Iran at this moment, the last time they saw the Iranian uranium stockpile is almost 2 weeks ago.
Right. So things may have, and in fact, satellite imagery also shows trucks having been deployed outside Fordo just a couple of days prior to the strikes. I mean, dozens of them. So let me go back to Shuki Friedman. The other aspect of this, of course, is that while Iran cannot match Israel or the US conventionally, the entire business of terrorism, front organizations, the threat of Houthis, Hamas, Hezbollah, other groups coming, for example, out of Syria and Iraq, that continues to threaten Israel. What guarantee is there at all that that's something which is going to stop?
First of all, you have to realize what happened in recent almost 2 years. Since October 7, basically Israel destroyed the two main proxies Iran built around Israel. One is Hamas in the south, which is almost completely demolished, and the other is Hezbollah. Think about it. Iran built Hezbollah in the purpose that when Israel will attack its nuclear infrastructure in Iran, Hezbollah will hit Israel and treat it with thousands and thousands of missiles from north to the center of the state of Israel. When the day came and we attacked the nuclear program of Iran and its capital and its bases, Hezbollah even didn't shoot one single shot toward Israel. Just sat there and told Iran, you're strong enough, hold on, we are supporting you from the behind, which means Hezbollah is very weak, much weaker than it used to be. Hamas is almost done. It has some power in the Gaza Strip, but it's much weaker than it's been. And you're right, there are the Houthis, which are some threat to Israel and some other militias, but Assad and his regime, which enabled the Iran approach to Israeli border, collapsed. And now the regime in Syria is actually rejecting Iran and in a way cooperating with Israel. Remember that Al-Julani told Israel, you're welcome to hit the Iranian missiles on Syria's soil, skies, which means he's actually lying and cooperating with us. So the Iranians tried to build what they called a ring of fire around Israel that will hit us in one day when they decide or when we attack them. And when the moment came and we hit them, and for 12 days, Israeli jets bombed around Iran, none of them almost act in any way against Israel. So strategically, the situation is much better for us than it used to be 2 years ago because Iran proxies are much weaker. Iran itself is much weaker. Its missiles heated almost severely, not completely, and its nuclear program heated severely, not completely. There's still work to do.
All right. Well, Mr. Friedman, all I can say at this stage, as you know, we're running out of time, is that let's hope the ceasefire holds. It's critical because there were violations of the ceasefire, but the fact of the matter
that we get an agreement. You're right, but let's hope that we get an agreement that will prevent Iran of getting more capability of nuclear weapon, and otherwise we have to hit again.
Well, let's hope there is a ceasefire and there is no hitting either by Israel or by Iran. But the terms of that ceasefire is something that I suppose is going to be the next chapter in this long battle. But let's hope that there is peace on the ground. There's been enough bloodshed already. I'd like to thank you all very much for being with us.